Perfect. Chris, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, so Chris Miles, I'm known as the anti-financial advisor, primarily because I used to be a financial advisor that was now a recovering financial advisor that's actually making money. That's the big difference. The big thing that we do with Money Ripples is really about that ripple effect you create in people's lives, but it starts with you first, right? It's about how you create freedom and prosperity for yourself. And so we actually teach people how to create passive income with their actual money, using their money, work harder for them, so they don't have to work so hard for that money, right? So get them to create passive income, things like real estate investing and whatnot, things that your financial advisor would never recommend you do, yet has been proven to work way better. And get people retiring usually within 5 or 10 years, or become what I call work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to.
Fantastic. Okay. Question number one. What is the single most effective productivity hack that has created you operating leverage or your team and has helped grow your business?
I think that the biggest one is actually a question I will often ask myself throughout the business as we grow. Is one kind of a question I learned when I read the book The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. The guy that wrote Profit First, right?
I love Profit First.
Yeah, great book, great book. And in the Pumpkin Plan, I got this huge epiphany from it because he talked about those prize-winning pumpkins that they grow that gets on the news, and how you have to keep chopping off all the smaller pumpkins so you get the one big pumpkin. That vine feeds that one pumpkin. And this kind of goes along with that Pareto's principle, the 80-20 principle, that your 80% of your revenue comes from the top 20% of clientele. Well, I took it a step further. I was like, well, what's the top 20% of my top 20%? So what's my top 4% that creates 96% of my revenue? I remember doing that first in 2015. And I thought, man, I got to redo my business. I got to cut off all this extra fluff and stuff that I'm doing, all these networking groups I was doing locally, even though I was a nationwide brand. Why would I go to all these local networking groups and whatnot? And pretty soon I cut down my hours from 50 hours a week down to about 5 to 10 hours a week, but I doubled my revenue and about almost 10x my profit as a result of that. And that's the kind of thing that I've learned throughout the business, is always asking, okay, what's that top 4%? What's the best activities I could possibly be doing that generates the most revenue for my business?
John Austinson, Framebridge Consulting, and we're an Inc. 5000 company that helps entrepreneurs and investors around North America get plugged into business ownership through what I call non-food franchising. So represent over 600 franchise brands and love helping people step into business ownership.
Fantastic. Question number one. What is the single most effective productivity hack that has created you operating leverage or your team operating leverage and or grew your business?
Yeah, this one's dear to your heart, but if I were to point to one thing, I would say it was our use of virtual assistants going back to 6 years ago, and just be able to hand off tasks that they can run with. And, it's never 100% the way you want it. Sometimes it's actually better than the way you want it, but oftentimes it may be 80% of the way you want something done, but 80% is enough if it saves me the time. And, I dramatically underestimate how much my virtual assistants can do. So I don't challenge them enough. And so that's something I'm always working on. But just any time that it saves me to leverage, to more high payoff activities has been worth it.
My name is Kevin Wilhelm. I am an agency, digital agency founder and CEO. Our company name is Pod Marketing, and we specialize in particular verticals. So we operate in three, one in the optometry, dental, and senior living industries.
Fantastic. Okay, question number one, Kevin. What is the single most effective productivity hack that has created you operating leverage for yourself and your team and or grew your business?
For me, early on, I hired two executives that I essentially took about a year and a half to train each side of the business. One was in charge of operations, one was in charge of sales. So I feel like many business owners hold on to those two things for a long time and become the bottleneck. And so early on, like within 3 years, I had hired both of those positions. And that has absolutely propelled us by being able to delegate and elevate certain tasks off my plate.
If we were to double click into those, on the sales side, where was the biggest productivity gain on lead generation, winning net new business and or upselling and cross-selling? And then maybe answer the same side on operations, whether it's on service delivery, where was the biggest gains with that bought back time for you to go work on the business, not in the business?
Yeah, I mean, for the first probably the first 6 years, most of the sales were myself and my business partner, and we were highly effective at it. However, everything had to go through us, and so we built a team, we built a system, trained a lot of people. And I think one of the big changes was we turned our account managers into commissionable salespeople. So they make a percentage of what they manage, which means that they now were responsible for the under promise over deliver quotient that they needed to go and get. They every client became valuable to them. They fought hard to keep every client within the agency, whereas I see so many other times when account managers are just on salary, every new account is more work without more pay. And so this was the opposite, and it completely changed the game for us in allowing just our people that are in charge of the client relationship to really have skin in the game. And on the operations side, I'm not the greatest at process creation management. It's not something I enjoy. So when I handed that off, the person that stepped in that seat was very good at it and was able to create the processes that others can follow, that can be replicable, scalable. So that was an easy win by handing off that side of the business that I was not great at.
Hi, my name is Matthew Passy. I am the co-founder of Custom Podcast Solutions. We are a company, kind of like a think tank, trying to solve a variety of different problems in the podcasting space. I'm also the host of Podcasting Tech, a show that talks about, you might guess, podcasting technology and services.
Fantastic. Okay, question number 1. What is the single most effective productivity hack that's created operating leverage for you and your team and or has grown your business?
I think one of the things that we did so efficiently when I was running the podcast consultant, where we had this large team of 22 plus contractors working with us, doing editing, production, show notes, administration, the whole thing, was setting up a Slack channel, believe it or not. I know you're going to say that doesn't really sound like much of a productivity hack, but what it actually did was it turned all these isolated people into one giant team. And it was a great way, obviously, one, to communicate with everybody, right? Give them, here's what we need, here's what we got, where are you at, what's happening. But then also it brought the team together. We set up a few, various rooms of places where people could talk about what's going on in their lives, wishing people happy birthday, giving out different advice for not just ways for everybody to do their job better with the podcast consultant, but also there were a lot of people that had shared interests. And so, we had a bunch of musicians, let's say, working for us. So people would talk about what was happening in the music scene, and that got people a little bit closer. Or people were trying to get into video editing. So our video editors would pop in and say, oh, you should try this. So check out this service. Oh, I use this tool. So, when you're working with a scattered team, right, a remote first team, having a place that feels like the break room, let's say, or the conference room or the meeting room, the bullpen of the office, is a great way for everybody to feel more connected, and therefore they will definitely be more productive.